Sir Alric adjusted the straps of his polished armor, his gaze fixed on the stars beyond the ornate balcony. The alien capital of Viridia shone with soft, bioluminescent light, a stark contrast to the battle-scarred worlds he had left behind. Across the galaxy, the war raged on, empires clashing, alliances crumbling. But here, the alien court was serene, as if untouched by the chaos beyond. He stood silent, his armored boots clicking on the smooth crystal floor, as a messenger approached. The time had come. The monarch had summoned him. The Thalrasa, ruler of the Viridian dominion, was an ethereal being, shimmering with translucent wings and a crown made of cosmic metals. She observed Alric with large, glowing eyes, her expression unreadable but not unkind. Her voice was a musical hum, resonating directly into his mind. "Sir Alric of Earth," she began, "the galaxy is falling into darkness. Factions fight for power, and bloodshed spreads unchecked. I fear the time has come to call upon your kind." Alric knelt before her, his armor clinking softly. "What do you ask of me, your grace?" Her gaze softened. "There is an artifact, lost for centuries. The celestial aegis, an ancient relic that can end the war. It was hidden in the depths of the Zorath Nebula, beyond the reach of any empire. Only someone of pure intent can retrieve it. We need a knight, a soul bound by honor and duty." Alric nodded, feeling the weight of the mission settle on his shoulders. A knight's quest, though in unfamiliar stars. He was bound by his oaths to answer the call. "The journey will be perilous," the Thalrasa warned. "Others will seek the artifact for themselves. You must not fail." Alric bowed low. "By my sword and my honor, I swear I will not." His ship, the Valiant, hummed softly as it drifted away from Viridia, the stars stretching into streaks of light beyond the view screen. Alric sat at the helm, checking the ancient star maps the Thalrasa had provided. The Aegis lay deep within the Zorath Nebula, an uncharted expanse of cosmic storms and forgotten ruins. The knight knew the task ahead was daunting, but doubt did not trouble him. It was not the knight's place to question the path, only to walk it. The galaxy needed peace, and the Aegis was the key. Yet he also knew that no quest could be completed alone. The stars were vast, and dangers awaited. He would need allies, whether they welcomed him or not. The first stop on his journey took him to Nalthar Station, a lawless haven floating on the edge of civilized space. If there was one thing Alric had learned during the war, it was that every quest began with a little chaos, and chaos, as it happened, was something Kira excelled. Kira was a thief, her sleek insectoid form flitting between shadows, her faceted eyes scanning the crowded station for opportunity. She was on the run. Again, Kira lived for trouble, but this time she'd found more of it than she could handle. A gang of bounty hunters had cornered her near the docking bays, their weapons drawn. "I told you it wasn't personal," Kira hissed, her wings buzzing nervously as she backed away. "How was I supposed to know that lockbox belonged to your boss?" The leader of the hunters sneered, raising his plasma pistol. "We don't care about the lockbox. We care about the bounty on your head." Just as the hunter's finger squeezed the trigger, a shadow moved in the corner of Kira's vision. The next moment, a sword sang through the air, slicing the hunter's pistol in two with surgical precision. Sir Alric stepped into the fray, his silver armor gleaming even in the dim light of the station. "Stand down," Alric ordered, his voice calm but commanding. "This one travels under my protection." The hunters hesitated, their weapons twitching and uncertain. They knew better than to cross a knight, even an alien knight from Earth. With a few muttered curses, they slinked away, disappearing into the shadows. Kira blinked her large eyes, momentarily stunned. What are you supposed to be?" "Sir Alric of Earth," he replied simply, sheathing his sword. "And you, thief, are coming with me." Kira tilted her head, amused. "And why would I do that?" "Because," Alric said, "I need a navigator who knows her way through the black, and I suspect you need someone who can keep you alive." She considered the offer for a moment, her wings buzzing thoughtfully. Then she grinned. "Well, I do like staying alive. I suppose I can tag along, for now." With Kira at his side, the quest had begun in earnest. They plotted a course toward the next destination, a desert world ruled by a disgraced warrior who might hold the key to navigating the Zorath Nebula. As the Valiant left Nalthar Station behind, Alric sat back in the captain's chair, watching the stars unfold before him. "One ally down," he murmured to himself. "Many more to go." Kira, lounging in the co-pilot's seat, gave him a sly look. "So, what's the plan, O noble knight? Save the galaxy with just the two of us?" Alric smiled beneath his helmet. "No, thief. We'll need more than that. But together, we'll find them." The engines roared to life, propelling the Valiant deeper into the unknown. The stars awaited, and so did the celestial Aegis. The Valiant touched down on Varthos, a desolate desert world scorched by twin suns. Sandstorms whipped across the barren surface, and jagged cliffs loomed in the distance like ancient guardians. This was the domain of Krovax, a fierce reptilian warrior whose name was once whispered in fear across the galaxy. But that was long ago. Now Krovax was an outcast, banished from his people for a dishonor he refused to speak of. Convincing him to join the quest would not be easy. Alric adjusted his armor, feeling the heat radiate through his suit, as he and Kira made their way toward a dilapidated outpost perched at the edge of a canyon. Kira shot him a sideways glance, her wings flicking in agitation. "So, what's the plan, knight? We march in, flash your shiny sword, and hope he's in the mood to listen?" "Something like that," Alric replied with a faint smile. Kira rolled her multifaceted eyes. "You humans, and your endless optimism." The outpost doors groaned as Alric pushed them open. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and the stale scent of old ale. There, seated alone at a table littered with broken bottles, was Krovax. The towering reptilian warrior had scales as black as obsidian, his eyes glowing amber beneath a heavy brow. A jagged scar ran down the side of his face, a reminder of battles fought and lost. Krovax barely acknowledged their presence as they approached, his massive arms resting on the table like twin boulders. "I'm not interested," Krovax growled without looking up. "You haven't heard the offer," Alric said calmly. Taking a seat across from him, Krovax's amber eyes flicked toward Alric, narrowing with suspicion. "A knight of Earth, I thought your kind stayed out of matters beyond your world." "This isn't just my world's fight," Alric replied. "The war threatens us all. I need your help to end it." Krovax let out a low, bitter laugh. "And you think I care about your noble quest? I am no one's savior, human. Go find some other fool to die for your cause." Alric leaned forward, meeting the reptilian's gaze with unwavering resolve. "Then fight for yourself. Prove that you are more than the shame others have cast upon you." Krovax's eyes darkened, his claws tapping rhythmically against the table. "You speak boldly, knight, but words mean little in my world. If you want my help, you'll have to earn it." Kira groaned. "I knew this would end in a fight." Krovax stood, towering over Alric. "A duel of honor. Prove you are worthy, and I will join you." Alric rose from his seat, unhooking his sword from his belt. "I accept." The duel was swift and brutal. In the heart of the canyon, the two warriors clashed like titans. Krovax fought with primal fury, his claws striking with the force of a hammer. Alric met him, blow for blow, his sword dancing in precise arcs that deflected the reptilian's powerful strikes. Kira watched from the sidelines, nervously chewing on the end of one of her wings. "This has to be the dumbest plan I've ever seen." The duel ended as abruptly as it began, with Alric's blade at Krovax's throat. But the knight made no move to strike. He simply lowered his weapon, his expression calm. "I do not seek your defeat," Alric said. "I seek your trust." For a long moment, Krovax stared at him, chest heaving from exertion. Then slowly, a grin spread across his scarred face. "You fight well, knight. Perhaps there is something to your foolish honor after all." He extended a clawed hand. "I will join your quest." With Krovax now part of the team, the Valiant set course for a distant moon known for harboring exiled mystics. There, Alric hoped to find Errol, a telepathic healer whose abilities had made her an outcast among her own people. The moon was a bleak, frozen wasteland, illuminated only by the pale light of distant stars. Errol's sanctuary lay hidden within a cavern, where she tended to injured travelers too desperate to seek healing elsewhere. When Alric and his companions arrived, Errol greeted them with suspicion. Her pale lavender skin shimmered faintly in the cavern's dim light, and her silver eyes studied them with guarded curiosity. "You are far from home, knight," she said softly, her voice brushing against their minds like a breeze. "What do you want from me?" "We seek the celestial aegis," Alric replied. "With it, we can end the war." Errol's expression darkened. "The galaxy is always at war. One artifact won't change that." "Perhaps not," Alric admitted, "but we must try. I know what it is to carry the burden of failure, Errol, but I also know that running from it won't bring peace." For a moment, Errol was silent, her gaze distant. Then she sighed, her shoulders relaxing. "You are strange, human. I have touched many minds, but none quite like yours." She stepped forward, her hand brushing Alric's. "Very well, I will join you. But if this quest fails, the blame is yours." The final member of their crew awaited them in the most unlikely of places, a scrapyard orbiting a dead star. There, Alric sought out Unit 7X, a disgraced AI pilot whose programming had been corrupted during a failed mission. The AI's sleek metal frame was scarred and rusted, its glowing optic flickering like a dying flame. It had once been one of the finest pilots in the galaxy, until it made a decision that cost the lives of an entire crew. "You must be desperate to come here," 7X said, its voice tinged with bitterness. "I believe in second chances," Alric replied, "and I believe you deserve one." The AI hesitated, its optic flickering uncertainly. "You trust too easily, knight. That's a flaw. Or perhaps it's a strength," Alric countered. After a long pause, 7X gave a low, mechanical hum, the AI's version of a sigh. "You're a fool, but if you're determined to fly into oblivion, I might as well come along." With the team assembled, The Valiant set course for the Zorath Nebula, where the celestial aegis awaited. Each member of the crew was an outcast in their own way, carrying burdens they had long thought too heavy to bear. But under the knight's leadership, they found something unexpected: hope. As the stars stretched before them, Kira leaned back in her seat, a sly grin on her face. "Well, Sir Shiny Armor, looks like we've got ourselves a crew." Ulrich smiled beneath his helmet. "And together, we'll finish this quest." Krovax rumbled in agreement. Errol offered a quiet nod, and 7X powered up the ship's engines with a soft hum of anticipation. The journey had only just begun, but for the first time, they felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. The Valiant hurtled through space, weaving between shifting clouds of cosmic dust within the treacherous Zorath Nebula. Lightning storms rippled through the nebula, sending arcs of energy across the hull. The ship groaned under the pressure as 7X piloted with unnerving precision, maneuvering between gravitational anomalies. "Hold on!" 7X warned through the comm system. "This nebula isn't interested in letting us pass quietly," Krovax grunted, gripping the edges of his seat. "I prefer battles on solid ground." "Relax, big guy," Kira said with a smirk, hanging upside down from the support beams in the cockpit. "This AI knows what it's doing, right?" 7X's optic flickered. "My success rate has improved by 12% since my last crash." Ulrich chuckled under his breath. "Encouraging." With one final burst of acceleration, the ship pierced through the last storm, emerging into the relative calm on the other side of the nebula. Before them lay a massive, derelict temple, a structure older than most civilizations in the galaxy, floating silently among the stars. "That's it," Ulrich said, leaning forward in his seat. "The Temple of the Celestial Aegis." The Valiant touched down on a platform at the base of the ancient temple. As the crew stepped out, the weight of the place settled over them. The structure was enormous, carved from obsidian-like stone, with alien glyphs etched across every surface. Strange statues, frozen in poses of reverence or fear, lined the entrance hall. "Creepy," Kira muttered, her wings flicking nervously. "Stay alert," Ulrich cautioned. "If the legends are true, this place is guarded." They ventured deeper into the temple, following glowing symbols that pulsed faintly beneath their feet. The path led them to a vast chamber, where massive stone guardians slumbered. Each statue was a giant, humanoid figure, their eyes dark and lifeless. Ulrich stepped forward cautiously, examining one of the statues. "These must be the temple guardians," he whispered. "They've been dormant for centuries." As if on cue, the statue's eyes flickered to life, glowing with an ominous light. The guardians began to move, their stone bodies grinding against each other. With each step, they stirred ancient dust, and the sound of creaking stone echoed through the chamber. "Oh, you just had to touch something, didn't you?" Kira groaned. "Defensive formation!" Ulrich shouted, drawing his sword. Krovax raised his massive blade, stepping in front of the group, while Errol's hands glowed with soft energy, preparing to shield them. The battle with the Temple Guardians was swift and brutal. Ulrich fought with precision, his sword clashing against stone limbs as sparks flew. Krovax roared, cleaving through a Guardian's arm with sheer force. Meanwhile, 7X fed tactical data to the team, guiding them through the battle. "Left flank exposed," the AI said calmly. "Recommend swift dismemberment." Kira darted between the massive legs of the Guardians, planting small explosives as she went. With a series of controlled detonations, the giants faltered. Errol sent waves of psychic energy, disrupting the Guardians' movements, allowing Krovax to deliver finishing blows. When the last Guardian collapsed, the chamber fell silent once more, leaving only the sounds of heavy breathing. Kira dusted herself off. "Well, that was fun. What's next, Knight? Do we fight a space dragon?" Ulrich smiled beneath his helmet. "Not if we can help." At the heart of the temple, the team discovered a glowing pedestal, upon which rested the celestial aegis. It was a magnificent artifact, a shimmering orb encased in an ornate frame of alien metal. Strange symbols danced across its surface, hinting at power far beyond comprehension. Ulrich reached out slowly, his hand hovering just above the artifact. But as his fingers brushed the surface, the temple rumbled, and the room darkened. Did you mean to do that?" Kira asked nervously. The team was suddenly overwhelmed by visions, each facing their deepest fears. Kira stood in a dark alley, surrounded by shadows. Her old crew, the ones she betrayed long ago, loomed over her. Their eyes were cold, accusing. "You always run, Kira," they whispered. "You'll never belong anywhere." She clenched her fists, forcing herself to confront the vision. "Not this time," she whispered. Krovax faced the tribunal that had exiled him from his homeworld. Their harsh words echoed through the void. "You failed us, Krovax. You are unworthy." But this time, Krovax stood tall. "I am more than your judgment." Errol stood alone on a barren moon, surrounded by the echoes of her people's rejection. Their voices rang in her mind, cold and unforgiving. "You will never find peace." Errol closed her eyes, reaching out mentally. But this time, She wasn't alone. Alric's steady presence was there, along with the others. Alric himself was transported into a vision of a burning battlefield. He saw the faces of those he couldn't save, the ones who had fallen under his watch. His sword felt heavy, the weight of failure unbearable. But as he stood, burdened by doubt, a voice echoed in his mind: Krovax's deep growl, Kira's sarcastic quip, and Errol's calm reassurance. "We're with you, Alric," their voices said in unison. "We stand together." The visions shattered, and the team returned to the present. The artifact glowed brighter, as if acknowledging their worth. They had passed the trial. Alric took the celestial aegis from the pedestal, feeling its power thrumming beneath his fingertips. But there was no time to celebrate. The temple walls began to tremble, and distant footsteps echoed through the halls. Their enemies had arrived. "Time to go!" Kira shouted, already sprinting toward the exit. The team made a mad dash through the crumbling temple as enemy ships closed in from above. The chase had begun. Their enemies wanted the aegis, and they wouldn't stop until they had it. 7X piloted the Valiant with expert precision, dodging debris and enemy fire as the team scrambled aboard. Alric stood at the ramp, sword drawn, as enemy troops pursued them through the collapsing temple. "Not today!" Alric muttered, slamming the hatch shut as the Valiant roared into the sky. They had the aegis, but the hardest part was still to come. The Valiant hurtled through space, enemy fighters in pursuit, their laser fire streaking across the void. 7X pushed the ship to its limits, weaving between asteroid fields and debris left behind by ancient battles. "Shields at 20%, 7X reported, its voice devoid of panic. "Structural integrity is concerning." "Concerning?" Kira snapped, gripping the console. "Try terrifying. Less complaining. More shooting," Krovax growled, unleashing a barrage of plasma fire at the pursuing fighters. One enemy ship exploded, but 3 more took its place. Alric stood at the center of the cockpit, the celestial aegis clutched tightly in his hand. The artifact glowed faintly, as if aware of the danger surrounding them. "We need to lose them," Alric said, his voice calm but firm. 7X, plot a course to the nearest star system. The AI's optic flickered, already ahead of you. "However, there's a slight complication." "Of course there is," Errol muttered. "An unstable star," 7X explained. "We can use it to our advantage, but only if we time the jump precisely." "Perfect," Kira groaned. "A mad dash through a dying sun. Why not?" With enemy fighters closing in, 7X angled the Valiant toward the system's unstable star. The ship rumbled and groaned as they accelerated, the heat from the collapsing star already seeping through the hull. "This is insane," Kira muttered, clinging to the console as the ship shook violently. "Not insane," Alric said, gripping the aegis tighter. "Just necessary." Krovax roared with excitement, blasting another enemy fighter from the sky. "This is more like it!" The star loomed ahead, a massive orb of chaotic energy on the verge of collapse. The moment to act was now. "Brace yourselves," 7X warned, jumping in 3, 2 first. With a deafening hum, the ship jumped to light speed, hurtling away just as the star erupted in a massive supernova. The explosion consumed the enemy ships, scattering debris across the void, but the Valiant emerged, intact and victorious. The crew let out a collective breath, the tension finally easing. "Well," Kira said, exhaling, "that was horrible." "Not dead yet," Krovax rumbled with a grin. Alric gave a rare chuckle. "Let's hope it stays that way." The team's relief was short-lived. As they drifted into safer space, the celestial aegis began to glow brighter, pulsing with an eerie rhythm. Errol stepped closer, her silver eyes narrowing. "Something's happening. It's awakening." The aegis flickered, projecting strange symbols and patterns into the air. 7X scanned the data, its mechanical voice tinged with urgency. "The artifact is activating a containment protocol. It wasn't just a tool for peace, it was also a lock." Alric's heart sank. The aegis wasn't merely an ancient relic. It had been designed to hold something at bay, something far worse than war. "We weren't meant to find it," Errol whispered, realization dawning. "It wasn't hidden to end a war. It was buried to keep something sealed." As they pieced together the meaning of the aegis's activation, the ship's systems flickered. A transmission came through, one they didn't expect. "The galaxy is watching you, Knight," a cold, mechanical voice said. "Surrender the aegis, and we will let you live." Alric's jaw tightened. "Who are you?" There was a long pause. Then the voice spoke again, with chilling certainty. "We are what the aegis was meant to contain, and now, thanks to you, we are free." Alric and the crew exchanged grim looks. Their quest had unleashed something far worse than war, an ancient threat that had been locked away for millennia. "We can't let them take it," Alric said, determination burning in his eyes. "Whatever this is, we stop it here." "But how?" Kira asked, wings buzzing nervously. "We barely made it this far." "We finish what we started," Alric replied, his voice resolute. Together, the team worked quickly, preparing for the final confrontation. The Aegis's power was still dormant, but if they could unlock it fully, it might contain the threat once more. "We need to reach the core of the artifact's energy," Errol said, her hands glowing as she tapped into the Aegis's latent power. "But it will take all of us. Our strengths combine." Alric nodded. "Then we do it. No hesitation." Krovax grinned. "One last fight." Kira rolled her eyes but smiled. "Let's make it count." As enemy ships closed in on the Valiant, the crew prepared for their final stand. The fate of the galaxy rested in their hands, and no matter the odds, they would face it together. The Valiant trembled as enemy ships surrounded it, their dark hulls blotting out the stars. The ancient force, now awakened and free, had come to claim the celestial Aegis. Inside the ship's control room, Alric stood with the artifact glowing in his hands, his companions at his side. "It's now or never," Kira muttered, her wings flicking with nervous energy. Krovax growled, gripping his weapon tight. "Let them come." The ancient voice returned, cold and calculating. "Surrender the Aegis, and your deaths will be swift." Alric ignored the transmission, turning to his companions. "We end this here. If the Aegis can still seal the threat, we need to unlock it." Errol placed her glowing hands on the artifact, closing her eyes as she reached into its energy. "I can feel it, but it's complex. It's a mechanism built to respond to unity, not individual power." Alric nodded. "Then we unlock it together." As the enemy fleet drew closer, the team gathered around the celestial Aegis. Errol linked her telepathic abilities with the minds of the crew, creating a shared connection, a mental bridge where their thoughts and emotions intertwined. "I see," she whispered, her voice calm. "The artifact is attuned to trust, to cooperation. We have to work as one." "Guess that means no running off," Kira said with a smirk, despite the tension in the air. "I've got your back, thief," Krovax rumbled, his amber eyes glowing warm. 7X hummed. "This level of trust is statistically unusual." Alric smiled. "Together, no matter the odds." The team channeled their emotions through the Aegis, trust, courage, and the bonds they had forged on their journey. The artifact responded to their unity, glowing brighter until the entire room was bathed in its radiant light. Symbols spiraled across its surface, unlocking the full power within. The enemy ships fired at the Valiant, but the Aegis pulsed with a massive wave of energy, sending a shockwave across space. The enemy's weapons fizzled, their ships frozen mid-attack. "What's happening?" Kira whispered, awe in her voice. The Aegis's energy enveloped the ancient threat, forcing it back into the void from which it had emerged. Ships crumbled to dust, and the presence that had haunted the galaxy for millennia was dragged into oblivion. "It's working," Errol said, her voice filled with wonder. But the artifact demanded a final cost, one last act of sacrifice. Its energy burned brighter, threatening to consume everyone aboard the Valiant. The galaxy would be saved, but only if they gave everything. Alric knew what had to be done. He stepped forward, ready to give himself fully to the Aegis, his knightly code demanding no less. But before he could act, Krovax's clawed hand landed on his shoulder. "Not alone, knight," Krovax said firmly. "We do this together." Kira nodded. "You're not hogging all the glory. We've come this far. No backing down now." Even 7X's optic flickered with something close to warmth. Optimal course. Collective effort. Illogical, but effective. Alric's heart swelled with pride and gratitude. This wasn't just a mission anymore. It was a bond forged in the fires of hardship. Together they poured the last of their strength into the Aegis, allowing it to complete the seal. The artifact responded to their unity, unleashing one final wave of light that swept across the stars, locking the ancient threat away once more. The energy dissipated, and the room fell silent. The enemy fleet was gone, and the Aegis lay dormant in Alric's hands, its purpose fulfilled. "We did it," Errol whispered, exhausted but triumphant. Kira collapsed onto the floor, wings buzzing weakly. "Please tell me that was the hard part." Krovax grinned, his teeth gleaming. "We live. That's a good start." 7X powered down briefly, its systems in need of recovery. Victory conditions met. Alric looked around at his companions, tired, battered, but alive. They had succeeded, not through strength alone, but through trust and friendship. Back aboard the Valiant, the crew set a course for the alien capital of Viridia. The galaxy would know peace at last, but the real victory was the bond they had forged along the way. As they approached the capital, Kira gave Alric a playful nudge. "Not bad for a knight, Sir Shiny Armor." Krovax chuckled. "You'll always have a place in my clan, knight." Errol smiled softly, her presence a soothing balm in the aftermath of the battle. "And in my thoughts." Even 7X gave a faint hum of acknowledgement. Statistically improbable, but acceptable. Alric smiled beneath his helmet. He had set out to end a war, and in doing so, he had gained a family. The Thalrasa greeted them upon their return, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You have saved us all, Sir Alric." Alric bowed low. "It was not just me, your grace. We did this, together." The monarch's gaze softened. "Then you have shown us the greatest truth of all. Honor, courage, and friendship are not bound by species or borders. They belong to all who seek them." As the crew of the Valiant prepared to go their separate ways, Alric stood quiet, watching the stars. He knew that no matter where life took them, they would always carry this journey with them. A bond forged in fire and light. "Will you stay with us, knight?" Krovax asked. Standing beside him, Alric smiled. "There are other quests to be fulfilled, but wherever I go, I know I won't be alone." With a final salute to his companions, Alric turned toward his ship, the celestial Aegis now resting safely within the alien archives. The galaxy was at peace, for now, but the stars still called, and Alric knew his journey was far from over. As the Valiant drifted into the void, the knight whispered to himself, "Friendship, loyalty, courage, these are the true relics we found." And with that, he set off into the stars once more, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, he had learned the most valuable lesson of all, that no quest is ever truly completed alone.